Thank you everyone for joining today. I'm Jamie. I lead developer relations at OpenHands, and today is our community meeting. We are happy to have you here. And let's go ahead and kick it off and welcome our new contributors. So these are the contributors who are new to OpenHands and have made a contribution within the last two releases. We have Avex, Jerry CYF, Jesse Tron, just for WPI. These people have made contributions and we're excited to have you here. Thank you so much. And that will lead me to our next slide, which we can talk about our project updates. So we've had two releases for V0. We have 0.61. There were some changes made either to the terminal tab being read-only or remove the Jupyter tab. And then for the 0.62 release, we added the ability to pin and unpin conversation tabs, as well as add a documentation link to the profile menu. So these are the things that happened at our most two recent releases. And then we've had many releases since our last community meeting as it relates to the CLI. They're all fixes, so just making it better for you using it. In general, a lot of it's around stability and usability for not only the CLI, which it does say CLI v1, but you will be able to also launch the GUI now locally as the v1. Kudos to that. It also revolves around improving startup times for conversations, shutdown behavior, and also cleaning up logs, as well as MCP settings and UV entry point. So that's basically what all this is. You're free to go to our releases to check out the latest and the greatest for either the V0 releases or these CLI V1 releases, which I will drop in the chat now.
I will say a lot of the CLI updates have made the CLI a lot more performant, reliable, and we still have a little bit more ways to go, but it seems to be working pretty well.
Excellent. And I'll just go ahead and pause there. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right, we'll continue on. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. And then OpenHands V1, as well as Software Agent SDK, we have Graham joining us today. So I'm going to kick it off to him so he can go ahead and kind of talk through what's new with us.
Yeah, so basically, to give a little bit of context, OpenHands started as, a big kind of chaotic open source project and involved in every which way. And we got a GUI, and then we got a CLI, and we had all the agent code, and all this was kind of entangled together a little bit. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to take a step back and pull out the agent code from the rest of the code. So you kind of have a really good self-contained package that's just the code that you need to use to run the agent. Jamie, do you mind if I share a screen?
Not a problem. I'll go ahead and stop sharing mine.
Okay. And so the Software Agent SDK is basically what we did to make this happen. And so the nicest thing about it is that it is at the same time extremely simple to start using. So this is kind of our hello world example. It's 28 lines of code. You initialize an LM, a language model, you initialize an agent, and that agent can have tools that are like the terminal tool, the file editor tool, the task tracker tool. And then you get your working directory, which is where the agent works. You start a conversation, and then you send a message like write 3 facts about the current project into facts.txt. So if you are familiar with if you're not familiar with using an OpenHands agent, you basically can just totally spin this up. But at the same time, and of course, this agent is basically the agents that we use to get really good accuracy on SWE-bench, for instance. So they're powerful agents. But you can do lots of other things. So like you can add custom tools. So you actually don't really need to do this. Like, OpenHands can already use the grep tool, but this is just an example where, like, if you want to add a new grep action and grep observation, you can kind of like implement it yourself. And then, like we added previous tools, we can now add this like kind of specially defined grep tool. And now when we start our tools, when we give the tools to the agent, we can add this. We can also add in skills. Skills are what we used to call micro agents, but they're basically like descriptions about how the agent should behave in certain situations. We can turn on confirmation mode where we don't want the agent to take particular actions without asking for confirmation. We can integrate MCPs. We can add custom secrets. We can add the web browser. We can route between different language models. We can add multi-agent workflows. So we can come up with a planning agent where the only job is to kind of analyze the task and understand what to be done next. And then you have another execution agent that you can use. We also have some examples of how you can like incorporate these into GitHub workflows. And my favorite one myself is this Datadog debugging workflow. Basically, this is a workflow that we actually use at OpenHands to run the OpenHands Cloud, where like if we identify a production error, we can run a GitHub workflow that basically goes in and debugs the production error across all of our repositories and tries to figure out like what went wrong with our code so that OpenHands can go in and like diagnose it and help us fix it and stuff. So basically, long story short about the Agent SDK is that it's extremely simple to start out. But you also have like a very large number of possibilities to go in and customize for your own particular repeatable use cases. I should also point out that this is now or very soon will be what will power the OpenHands Cloud. So it's powerful enough to run all of the agents that people are using in production on the OpenHands Cloud, which kind of is a testament to the fact that it should be powerful enough for most of the things that you would want to do with it as well.
Thank you, Graham. Does anyone have any questions?
I have one quick, if possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Regarding this SDK tool, is there any specific settings for like detailed configuration, like output window? Because, for example, I noticed that like I work as DevOps engineer, work with the big files, and there is like max output token window, and like for Copilot, it's limited. For example, 16,000 for one language model. As for the same language model, for example, Cursor supports much bigger. So it somehow like configure it in that way, or limited?
Yes. So we have a couple ways to configure context windows. The first is just by giving the agent settings and setting, okay, this is our maximum context window for the input and the output. The other thing is in OpenHands, we have a concept of context condensers, and the context condensers will basically take in the previous context and like shrink it down periodically, and you can decide how frequently you want to do that, for instance. And our context condensers, I think, are actually quite good. Kelvin, one of the researchers on our team, spent a lot of time going in and like polishing them so that they work really well. And before they worked really well, the agent would do kind of silly things like send a pull request over and over and over again. So you got 10 pull requests for the same bug fix or something like that. But now it is relatively unobtrusive, and it can greatly reduce your token costs as well. We do have an example in the SDK repo about how you can use that.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. I will check the code.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I think I can go back to sharing my screen. And then back to product update. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this off to Joe to give more.
Thanks, folks. I think in terms of the product updates, we kind of similar to what Jamie was saying, we've been making a lot of focus right now on the CLI, improving that reliability and reducing some of the exception cases that we have found. We're also in the process on OpenHands Cloud to move that to the V1, which is going to allow us to then roll out organizational support on OpenHands Cloud, so multiple users could use the cloud offering as well. So those are some of the areas that we've been focused on at the moment. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us in the OpenHands Cloud channel on Slack.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I went ahead and dropped the software agent SDK examples, which you can see in our GitHub repo there. So feel free to explore that. Moving on, we have our upcoming community events. Pretty full calendar coming up. So our next one is going to be AI Native Dev Con, which is in New York City. It'll be on Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Robert, our CEO, and Ray, our chief architect, they will both be presenting. I believe the schedule may be available now to determine which day that is. After the conclusion on the 19th, we are hosting an event, which we are called Coding with AI, which is also in New York City, but will be in Midtown. DevCon is in Brooklyn. And at our Coding with AI, it will be hosted at Alumni Ventures. And not only will it have us, OpenHands, but we will have a senior engineer from Pulumi. And we are also working on two or three other possibility of panelists joining us. So it should be an excellent discussion as well as a good time to network and also be able to see live demos. I will see if we can get this recorded, but I cannot make any promises. Then we have our AI Engineer Code Summit. You are welcome to apply for an invitation. Robert will be hosting a workshop on that on November 22nd. It actually runs from the 19th to the 22nd. Then our community call, which actually lined up with Thanksgiving, we're going to push back, and that's going to be in December. It's actually going to be 1 hour later than normal. It's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern or 1800 UTC because we have a code factor webinar on December 4th, same day, that Thursday, and that's going to be at 12 p.m. noon or 1700 UTC, which is this time right now. For our code refactor webinar, Robert and Calvin will be going through how you can utilize OpenHands and the current tools that are available to make refactoring go from months to days. So it should be a good one and something that we've talked about previously in our blog posts. After that, we will be at Generation AI Conference in Paris. Robert and myself and Simon will be there. And that is from December 9 through 11. Stay tuned. We plan to host a little community event during that time, as well as QCon AI in New York City. This is on the Upper East Side, and this will be December 16th and 17th. Also stay tuned as we are working on finalizing a community event there. The community events should be finalized by next week, so you'll hear more about that. And those are our upcoming community events. It's pretty jammed for November, December, but I will say we're definitely going to be back in Boston either January, February, so stay tuned. We're looking to host an event in Chicago as well, and then also keeping our eyes out for an opportunity to host an event in the Bay Area as well, around San Francisco. So cool. If you would like to join, feel free to RSVP. I shared the link to this presentation And I will also share the link to the presentation either in our YouTube recording or in our Slack so that you can get the links you need to RSVP. And with that, we really appreciate you joining us on this call today. We hope to see you at our next community call. We will be doing some like open office hours as well. So stay tuned for that. I can go ahead and drop the link to our next community call here also so that you can RSVP and not miss it.
Do we have an open floor discussion or something like that?
I did not schedule one for at the end of this call, but we do have 12 minutes left. So we can use this time to get some feedback from our community members who have joined us, or we can also have just an open discussion about anything related to OpenHands or AI in general. Or if there's something on your mind, Graham.
Not really. Sorry. Since the time changed, I haven't joined the community calls that frequently. So we used to have an open floor discussion. So I didn't know if we did. But since we have time, I mean, if people want to bring things up, like things they'd like to see or something like that.
Yeah, we're definitely open to taking any feedback that you may have, as well as any features that you really want, or if there's anything that's really bugging you, pun intended, we would also like to know about. So yeah, if you would like to share your experience so far, feel free.
I have a question on the agents SDK, which on the one hand looks really cool and nice one for launching it. But, or sorry, let me introduce myself. Sorry, I'm Morgan. I'm from Weights and Biases. The agents SDK looks cool, but I also kind of have a question, which I have with when I see every new agents SDK is like, why another one? So just curious in general, what makes this one special, or it's just something that you already use it internally, and so you figured you might as well just open source it?
So it's a little bit of each, actually. So it's like we already needed had the code internally. It was not in a good like modular format, and so it made it very hard to use. But the things we're particularly aiming for with the OpenHands Software Agent SDK are, this is the best SDK for like spinning up a practical software development based agent in 30 lines of code. And so like you can be guaranteed that if you spin up this software development agent in 30 lines of code, it will do, you know, like as well as our state-of-the-art agents on Sweetbench. So it's like fully batteries included. It also includes things like context compression by default. It can do all of those things, but then it's also configurable. So like any of the things you can configure through the OpenHands Cloud, you know, like adding MCPs or whatever, adding new skills or things like that. All of that is also configurable through the SDK by default because, you know, we're using it to power the cloud. So it has to be there in an easy to use way. So there's that. Another thing is we have a kind of different philosophy from a lot of the other SDKs like Crew AI or LangChain or that sort of thing, which is a lot of those are for like orchestrating lots of different agents in kind of like fixed workflows. Whereas we are aiming to have like a single agent that's powerful enough to do most things that you would want to do on a like small to medium scale without really changing things around too much. Like you can change things around if you want to, like, for instance, create an agent that doesn't have the ability to run bash and you only want it to be able to read files and not write files. Like you could do that. But if you give it the ability to like run bash and read and write files, then, you know, it can do things all the way from software development to, you know, processing lots of Excel files and taking them into a database, or doing research on the web and summarizing it into an MD report for you, and like all of these other things. So you don't need to do explicit orchestration nearly as much as you would have to do with a lot of other toolkits. One other thing compared to like the Claude Agent SDK or the Codex SDK is it's very easy to run anywhere, including in sandbox environments. So you can run it locally in a Docker sandbox, so it doesn't go and like accidentally destroy your system. You can run it on the cloud, so it can interface with a remote API, and like, and that's basically a one-line change. You change like the workspace that you're working in. Our tech report about the SDK, which is linked on the blog, actually has a huge table of like all the things we support that a lot of these other ones don't support as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that as well. One of the objectives of it was to keep the weight of it as small as possible. Like there was a lot of things in the UI in terms of front-end code and stuff that, depending on the use case, that people are just not interested in. So we wanted to keep the SDK lightweight from the point of view of giving people what they needed and none of what they don't.
Very good. Cool. Yeah, no, we've a company hackathon coming up for Christmas, so I think I'll give it a spin.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. If anything, I think we'll be continuing this open floor discussion when there's extra time at community calls. It's been really valuable, and all of this has been recorded and will be shared later today.
May I ask?
Are there any?
Sorry. Yeah, just a quick question. From the current perspective of market, what do you think, which model it might be like best cost to money performance? What might be the best? I know it's Claude. It was recommended.
This is a great question, and the unfortunate answer to this is we don't know right now, November 13th, 2025. And the reason why is because we spent the last 2 to 3 months making the SDK work really well. Or actually, until about 2 weeks ago, we spent 2 months making the SDK work really well. We spent the last 2 weeks or so rejiggering our evaluation framework so that it works well with the new SDK, and I think we're almost done with that. And so now our next step is actually to run a whole bunch of like evaluations on these models in a kind of like systematic way, and actually be able to answer better than anyone else that question. And so basically stay tuned, maybe in 2 community calls from now or something like that, we might be able to say more. The ad hoc answer, though, is there have recently been a ton of open source releases from various companies in China, and they all evaluate their models with OpenHands, and so they're all pretty heavily tuned towards working well with OpenHands. Just to give some examples, Kimi K2 was just thinking was just released. Minimax M2 was just released. GLM 4.6 was just released, and all of these are like quite good models. I've heard the most about GLM 4.6, which is like open model that works pretty well, and we've been playing around with it a little bit, and it seems to be quite competent. And the open models tend to be a lot cheaper, so they tend to be, able to be deployed by providers who give like relatively low cost. So that definitely is something we're looking at. But yeah, stay tuned for like maybe 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now when we actually have evaluation results.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Are there any other questions or discussion topics?
I had a just general question for folks who are interested in the agent SDK. If you were to go off and build your own agent, where would you want to then run that agent? Is there like, how would you want to set it up to run? Would you just run it manually? Would you want to run it as part of some sort of like event-based system like GitHub? Curious if folks have preferences or even ideas at this point around where they want to run that. Of course, it probably depends on the type of agent you build too, but
Yeah, hard to answer, but from my side, like I prefer if build something that's like a small scale, but something like a virtual server or just on-premise hosting machine, or maybe even some server at the home lab, but just separate machine Linux based with remote access and UI front end everything. And for deploy, it's I don't know, something Docker Compose. It looks good for me for small scale.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I think as we get more and more folks using the SDK, we'll probably run into that question of like, where do you want to run it? How do you want to deploy it? Right. And I think obviously it depends. We do have some examples on our documentation site where for actually how to run a few different types of agent examples in GitHub. So for like PR reviews or being able to kind of automate to-dos or assign or to assign different reviewers, for example, to issues. So definitely check out the examples, and there are some cool ones for how to use that on GitHub.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining, everyone.